Please give a warm welcome to Matt Coleman, the K-12 math director. Do I have the title right?
Yes, you do.
All right, good. A position Dr. Bodie once held.
Yes, it's
Keep that in mind.
a lot of pressure. I wanted to first start by apologizing to Jason. I didn't realize that you'd find out about the switch in position this way. I thought they would tell you beforehand, so sorry about that.
We worked it out in private.
Yeah, it's awkward. So thank you for having me. I was looking back at my notes from last year, and I think I actually presented to you guys on May 26th, so 11 months ago. Hopefully I can kind of recap some of the goals and some of the things that we were working on, kind of give a little summary of how that's manifested this year. One of the hopes that I had was to include some computer science stuff, but one of our computer science teachers is away this week, so I'd actually asked them potentially get back on an agenda later in May, because I think they deserve, a nice little venue and a little forum to kind of show off some of the things that they've been doing. So hopefully in the future we'll be able to have the middle school and high school computer science people here. As normal, whenever I present, feel free to ask questions. I have a time at the end for questions, but I prefer it to be a little bit more of a back and forth. So as I'm talking, just ask away. It's more than okay. Hopefully you have kind of a copy of the slides. So I don't know if you recall, but last year when I did present, I kind of gave an overview of what the first 4 years looks like for my time here. Unfortunately, this looks a little small. Is there any way to work with the imaging? It's missing the bottom part.
Yeah.
Full screen?
Yeah.
No, it is on full screen.
I can kind of talk through. Do you guys all have the physical copies? Perfect. One of the last slides of last year's presentation was essentially talking about the goals moving into this year. And this slide just kind of a recap, kind of what I had seen for the first 4 years moving into this year of things that we've been working on, things that we're going to be focused on, and little things like that. So, elementary school, there was kind of a movement towards Tier 2 and Tier 3 math support. We had, for my first couple of years here, kind of infused the math coaches. We are in the midst right now of readopting, bringing investigations back in. We're using 3.0. Right now, K and 1 is in the process of the adoption. The next couple of years, we'll be incorporating the other grades. We have continued coaching support unit planning, including formative data. We are going to be looking at restructuring our assessment system, and little aspects have been played around with this year. Just to kind of talk about some of the little nitty things, components of the new investigations contains some digital assessment parts as well as some checklists. We still use Kathy Richardson in K1 and 2, and we had tried out iReady, which is another program. So what we're going to do at the end of this year is to take a lot of that information, try to figure out what the path forward would be, with the idea that we also are going to be adopting investigations in 2, 3, and 4, 5. The middle school. I would say the bigger part of the middle school has been really trying to reach out and connect and make better, support networks for students who historically have struggled. I think we have done a good job with our math support program, and a lot of our revisions, a lot of the work has always been about how do we make that a little bit better. I think we've adopted a couple of nice programs and also little kind of sub-programs that have helped out, so that's been the core of the work. The other little thing, and again, in May, when I can get the CS teachers here, we'll talk about what our CS program looks like. The 6th grade program is doing great. And really, I'm really optimistic about this. I'm pretty certain we'll be able to have an 8th grade elective next year. The number of students that we could support is still debatable, but for a long-term goal of mine to kind of build a 6 through 12 computer science program, we'll have 6th grade pretty much set. We'll see how that looks when we go over to Gibbs. We'll get an 8th grade elective in next year. To me, that's important because I almost look at the transition to Gibbs as a 2-year plan. So if I could actually start the foundation, the seeds of things in next year, when the schools do split apart, at least we have the programs to grow from. And then just continued support for curriculum instruction. If I were to go down to the high school, I believe what the high school had as big goals, and I'm really excited to talk about this. The connection with special ed at the high school has been awesome this year. We really tried to focus on that, build good co-teaching. The co-teaching has been great. We've built in some other courses just so we can better meet the needs of what the students are telling us they need, which has been great. So I'm really anxious to see how that goes. So to add on a little bit more, RTI, I'm not quite sure how much you guys know about what structures we have in place. So at the current time, we still do have the 6 math coaches. I'm always looking for that 7th one, the unicorn. I like to kind of finish it off. Not all the schools have full-time math coaches, so it's not a one-to-one correspondence with full-time, but one of the bigger or other parts we've been working on is the student intervention, the Tier 2, Tier 3. Bringing in coaching was really meant to be that Tier 1. I want to ensure that what we're delivering inside the classrooms is as high quality as we can get it, and I really want to work with the teachers so they're supported in some of the shifts to what we expect them and are looking for. So right now we have 4 full-time staff that work with students, and the schools are Thompson, Hardy, Stratton, and Pierce. Some of this is Title I funded. Some of this is just the beginning, but it's great for us to have 4 schools where every single day there is a dedicated person who is there working with students. They're normally working in either a pull-out setting, but most often it's going to be a push-in with little small groups. For me, this is great because now at these 4 schools, I feel pretty confident about they have supports for teachers. They have a good plan moving forward for curriculum. They have a great support. And this is the testament, I think, to Laura and Kathy. They're getting, makes me so happy. They're getting all the curriculum materials, the cards, the manipulatives. We're able to support them with all of that. So really, when the teachers are sitting down and talking about planning, they can worry about that instead of, I need to make this manipulative or I have to find this. So it's been great. It's nice that we have a plan moving forward. And I think with the infusion of the student intervention, that really is solid support. At 3 schools, we have math practice guides. I should say 4. Thompson also has someone working as well. These schools have someone who is going in probably about 10 to 15 hours, usually 10 hours, they're working on that Tier 2, Tier 3, really Tier 3, the pull-out version of support at those schools. So that's been real exciting. There are a lot of hurdles. Since this is probably the first year we've really had this much infrastructure, I'm really curious to get some feedback at the end, and I'm curious to see how the kids respond to this. There are a lot of little quirks. And in reality, this same structure is what I'll be asking again for next year. Because, this being the first year, I'd like to see how this goes again. All right. Any questions on that?
I have a question. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. So is just a better sense of what these supports look like. So what percentage is sort of being pulled out? What percentage is training teachers? What percentage is, just rough?
Yeah, rough.
Is
So
pushing in?
So the coach's primary job is always to work with the teachers. Mm-hmm. So 100% of the time, that's what they're doing. Mm-hmm. But in reality, they're also talking to the interventionists. They're consulting side by side with special educators. They're doing a lot of the support of that Tier 1 part. So technically 100%.
Right.
For the student interventionist, and these are the little things we have to iron out. Mm-hmm. We have realistic parameters of schedule, of when kids are available, how much other services they need. Mm-hmm. So pretty much right now, it's one of those things where we're trying to engage with, here's someone who can deliver the services. Can we actually deliver it? How does it actually work with the schedule? So I would say, 100% of their time is done doing that, but 30% is filling out reports and looking at student work. The rest of the time is working with kids. The percentage for whether or not it's push out or pull in would vary based on schools, and that's dependent on the size of the school, the types of services they need. So that's a little bit more flexible.
Thanks.
Coaching. Coaching, in terms of it being a more focused job, it's starting to get there. Because we're in the midst of an implementation plan, if there are core things that I would say the coach is doing right now, it's working with the teachers on the implementation of the new curriculum. That's going to focus them to K-1. What we were able to do this year, and this is a great support from the elementary principals and as well as the upper administration for subs, it was really important for us to incorporate the idea of unit planning and giving the teachers the ability to look at something more long-term than just these one-off little PDs. So what we did this year was, out of the 8 units for each of the grades, 4 units are normally the core number sense units. So we prioritized those. We looked at the calendar, we projected when that would be, and what we did was we created these days that would be about a week and a half before the unit would actually happen, where we would actually, in paired school versions, so let's say Bishop and, I think it was Bishop and Stratton. We had a rationale for why we chose these. They would work together as a school with the coaches. They would be pulled out. Those classrooms would get subs. But for 3 hours in the morning, those teachers would have a great venue where they can talk with each other. They can play with the unit. They can look at the materials that they needed and really dive a little bit deeper into it. And then when they went back to their respective schools, the coaches can be there to enhance that. So that kind of model really, really worked well. The feedback on it was awesome because I think it adds a lot more depth. You know, one of the things I don't want is we ask our teachers to do so much, and sometimes when you get that manual, you become a page turner, and you may skip on some of those things. I really wanted to make sure that we were being thoughtful with supporting the teachers. So with that support throughout the year, with us having our standard PD days, the coverage for K-1 has been awesome. So the coaches have been doing that. The coaches also do coaching cycles where they'll work with 1 or 2 teachers at a time, and they'll be videotaping, they'll do something much more intense. Sometimes that's going to be about classroom management, sometimes that's going to be about lessons, but that is a really nice little add-on. So those are, I would say, the big core aspects. It seems so simple, but that takes up a lot of time when you're also considering they're doing all little one-off consultations, working with special educators, working with teachers for little things here and there, and it's worked well this year. Yeah. Any questions with that? Yes. Oh, sorry.
Through the chairman, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead, yeah.
So you're doing a rotating coaching model.
A hybrid version of that, yeah. Because
Okay.
we're adding more onto the, some schools will do the coaching model purely, that's all they'll do. And I think there's a lot of merit to that. Right now, we have other goals and other things that we're trying to work with. So when coaches can fit that into their schedule and it works well with the teachers, they have that in their toolbox. They understand what they would do for a good coaching cycle, and that's starting to take a little bit more hold. But they're also doing all the PD planning, all the other, the planning for these sessions and making sure that the delivery in the K-1 classrooms has been good.
Yeah, it seems like this is really the engine to move things. If you can get the teachers to unpack the standards and work with the materials before delivering it, plan together, come back and assess together, look at student work, and run a coaching cycle of an acceptable length. I know in Lowell, when we did it with our level 4 school, we were doing 9-week cycles, and it just was rocket fuel for.
That's right. I mean, that's the goal. We try to do the best we can, and we try to plan it ahead, and exactly what you just described. I mean, that's essentially what it would be. But there's just a lot of work.
So are the time of the coaches sacrosanct within the building, that they don't get pulled to do other things, that they're really focused on coaching?
I would say they're focused on supporting teachers. Mm-hmm. So the coaching cycle is part of it. Mm-hmm. As much as you'd want to say that the delivery of PD is coaching as well, then yeah, they're purely coaches. I really try to maintain. I take a lot of pride in protecting them from not. Part of the issue is that the concept of Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention is real. There are some students that we probably want to support that way. But for me, 4 years ago, when we first started doing this, I really want to make sure I'm protecting the teachers and making sure that they're supported in what they're doing as well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chrissy.
Can you just, I know I've heard Turk math for elementary, and now you're saying implementation of investigations. So what's the relationship between? Oh,
sorry, I use those words interchangeably. Turk is the company, the collaborative that actually creates investigations.
Okay.
Sorry.
No,
that's
fine.
my fault. And even really, I should be calling it investigations in numbers and space. I think me even calling it Turk is probably bad form. Sorry about that.
No, I'm just trying to make sure I know all the names.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Middle school. So for middle school this year, we're really trying to focus on what can we do to support some of our struggling learners. Building that K through 8. When I think of RTI, I'm really thinking about it as K through 8. And I want coaching. I want Tier 2, Tier 3 set. I mean, to me, that's the vision. I want to get that pretty much established. So when we get to high school, we have a little more ensurement that's there. So again, I think we do this every year, is we're really trying to reflect on how can we better service the students in math support? How do we better service, and that's our tier 2 add-on. It's like the 50% add-on for our standard level classes. How do we better support the special ed, general ed relationship in our small group classes? And then how do we work with the liaisons to kind of deliver and help out in academic support? So every year we're trying to play around with that. This year we infused it with some other curriculum resources, and we also tried different assessment tools. So we're hoping to see that that's yielding some returns at the end, and based on that, we'll try to make a goal for next year. Okay. I think I already mentioned this, the CS. I really want to go with 6 through 12 CS, so I'm pretty confident that, ultimately 7th and 8th grade, we're only going to get, I think, for next year, a 0.2 increase, which I'm psyched about, and I think that's going to be set for an 8th grade elective. And the way the CS courses work is that they're every other day. Computer science, thank you. Computer science. Those courses work, it's every other day for us at the middle school level, so even though it's just a 0.2, if we have an average class size of, let's say, 20 to 25, we should be able to support around 40 to 50 kids for this in 8th grade, which I'm happy as a start. We'll have to work through the curriculum. We'll have to work through some of the resources. Yeah. Any questions? Yes, please.
Can you just explain the rationale behind wanting to have CS for 7th and 8th grade?
Yeah, Yeah, I'm trying to think of this to make it a short answer. There's a lot of rationale. One, being able to engage with content in much more of a student creation, design, algorithm thinking, to me, that's very appealing to me. When I see those students in the 6th grade class, and I say this to you guys and also anyone else who's watching, checking out that 6th grade DML class is one of the coolest things. Right now what they're working on is something called a code bug in one of the classes. And the kids are working with their skill set they have from scratch. They're building programs, but they're creating nice, thoughtful messages on these devices. It's a little circuit board, but it's shaped like a bug, but it has a nice digital display. It can be hooked up to speakers. This thing actually can do a lot, and the things that the kids are coming up with are awesome. And you can see the enthusiasm. You can see these kids thinking. And the way in which they've structured the course, it's awesome. It's awesome that they've included this much reflection. So to me, I think it allows a different way in which we're engaging with the students. It's much more of their own. The second reason why is just societally, the concept of programming and being able to pull the curtain back and seeing what's behind the machines, that's pretty important. It's our fastest growing, for math anyways, our fastest growing courses at the high school. It's probably one of the biggest demands that parents are asking of me. So, for me, when I'm thinking about it from student demand, parent demand, the societal aspect, and the amount of enthusiasm that I see from the students, it's kind of a no-brainer to build it. Part of the reason why we're going with 8th grade next year is because if we do 8th grade next year, we're trying to capture as many kids throughout all of the years. So the kids that are in 7th grade now would definitely have 2 years of CS in the middle school going into the high school, which is what we want. If we did 7th grade next year, we'd lose that extra year. So we're trying to actually go forward and then go backwards if we can to build those courses. So we were at some point thinking about 7th or 8th grade, but I'm pretty certain it's going to be 8th grade where we'll go.
I was just wondering what would it be in place of?
It's a really good question. So that's why, there's so many obstacles to run around. The first thing I wanted to know was, do we have the 0.2 to do it? So, I feel like I have that commitment. The second thing we did was figuring out where it would go in the schedule. So we found a couple nooks where it can fill in. So we ran a couple of reports just to see how many kids, with this little nook that it can fill in, how many kids would that generate? And I think it generated 150 potential candidates.
Okay.
So from there, if I can only service 50, what we're most likely going to do, either next week or the week after, is reach out to the community, see what they would like, and then based on the community response, we either will go with the people who respond, or in some case, I guess maybe a lottery for the kids who would get it. It's not going to go in the place of much. It'll mostly go in the place of a directed study or a place of other little things that could be moved around.
So not art or music or?
It won't be in place of those, no. I personally don't want to step on the toes of those. I value those as well. For me, my future vision would be I'd want to integrate with those subjects, not take them over.
Okay.
All right, AHS. This I've been psyched about. This, I think, was Lynn Bennett at the high school working with this last year going into this year, it's been awesome. Our Curriculum B classes throughout the years have come in a lot of different packages. And really what I've been trying to do is to push it to be much more of a course that satisfies, a course less about being, these kids can't do it, and more about the course where I want to create good supports with the belief that everyone can do it. So our Curriculum B classes have become so much more, I think, structured. It sounds so simple, but over the past couple of years, with the increases in FTE, which I'm just grateful to have, we've got it to the point where our Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, which are our core courses, all have 2 sections. And working with special ed going into this year, now one of each of those sections is actually co-taught. That sounds like such a simple thing, but what it allows us to do is actually take some of the students that were in sub-separate math classes that may not have been in front of a certified math teacher. We could move a larger population of them inside of the co-taught classes, create a better environment. I think, to be honest with you, it's nice. We have 2 teachers in there, 2 real good qualified teachers in all 3 of those courses that are doing really, really good work with a higher percentage of the kids, I think, who would benefit from that. And we could do it for all 3 years. So that's been real exciting, and I'm hoping that we can do it again for next year. The other thing we did going into this year was, because we've seen, I want to say a different population, but an increase of students who may have had gaps in their learning, we were seeing at the high school some students who may not have fallen under special ed, who essentially were, this sounds crazy, but essentially we're at around a 5th or 6th grade level in 9th grade. And we didn't have the ability to service. So this year we created a pre-algebra class, which is a general catch-all for maybe 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math. And it really does service exactly what these students need. Currently we have 5 students. It's been going well. It hasn't been without its hiccups, but it's been awesome. So for me, looking at the high school this year, our ability, I'd say the first 3 or 4 years, we were really servicing the higher end. We brought back CS, we brought back all these AP classes, we brought back all these other things that are still doing great. And going into this year, we really have kind of beefed up the supports for some of our struggling learners, which I'm psyched about.
Anyone else want to ask a question about this section? Because I wanted to ask it. So I'm just,
Please.
so that, I don't want to, it's a small group of students, so it sounds like 5 or 6 students?
In the pre-algebra class.
And their mathematics levels are at the 5th, 6th grade level, and they're not on IEPs?
Yeah.
Because it's mostly interrupted schooling, I'm sorry to
That's right.
interrupt, but
Yep.
it's mostly those people, those students who have had interrupted schooling, because the vast majority of them have not done their schooling in the United States.
Aha,
There's a connection with ELL.
okay, so that's what I wanted to understand.
Yes.
So they're ELL students?
Not all, but
Okay.
there's a correlation. Yeah.
Okay, so some have been in our system, some have not?
Some, I'm just going through the list in my head.
Yeah.
Some have for short periods of time.
Yeah.
And some have for a little bit longer.
Okay.
But the longer is an extremely rare case.
Yeah, okay, now I get okay, I just wanted to
Yep.
understand who that is, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no problem.
I'm sorry, Bill.
Does this interact with helping them pass the math part of the, whatever the state testing is now?
What is it called now?
I was going to call it an MCAS, but
MCAS 2.0, right?
MCAS Next
whatever.
Gen.
Is-
Yeah,
is
MCAS
that
Next
part
Gen.
of part of this program to help them, help this
You know-
population?
So the one thing I always say is this. I don't know if we necessarily have if I remember the stats off the top of my head, the past 3 years, the average number of students who have not passed the MCAS and the first time they've taken it is like 2. And you can actually find a pretty clear reason why they don't pass. Last year was 3. One student was new to this district. I think one student was not in school as much as they probably could be. And another student, I think there was a pretty good reason for it. Essentially from there, the needs improvement, I want to say there was only 18. And for those students, we have a good pathway going for them. So for me, when I work with the teachers, I don't want the goal ever to be that we're going to get kids to pass the test. What I want them to focus on is good quality teaching, and what I want to do is create programs and structures that can support where they are. So to me, when I put in the pre-algebra class, I think I understand the cost that it may put them in a position in 10th grade not to be there. But in reality, what I've seen, if we can get a student to really do well in the 8th grade MCAS, we could probably get them to get through the 10th grade tests. Even though we might not have, a perfect score, we can get them to pass. But I want them to focus more on the quality, which is why we kind of chose a pre-algebra kind of moniker for it, because essentially we wanted to focus on how do we, for some of these kids where their math concepts maybe much more procedural, how do we add depth to their knowledge so it's a little bit, it's simpler? With the fact that these kids are in 9th grade, and even if, we will have time to get them through that hurdle. And I don't want to sacrifice good quality teaching. All right. So the last thing, just to touch on it, the first one, I still want to add so many more electives at the high school. I really, really do. But I would say this kind of goes under the next little part. Because we want to actually add some more exposure, we're in the midst right now of kind of looking at our programs and trying to figure out what can be offered as half-year electives. Because we want to give the kids an ability to get into let's say, a CS class or something else, and then come out of it, if they want, just to try it out. So going into next year, we're going to split apart a couple of our classes. We'll offer 2 CS electives. The following year after that, we're offering 2 more different electives. We're taking another CS course and splitting it. Our CAD classes have been split into halves, and then we'll look at some of our math classes to see if we could offer them as half-year electives. So we can, we have a great set of, high percentage of kids taking math class, but so many more kids want to try to just dabble in it. And this year-long commitment sometimes is the deterrent. If we can do it as a half-year, they'll jump in. The goals for next year are roughly the same as this year. To be honest with you, we might redo a lot of it. The biggest change is going to be a lot of the planning at the OMS is now going to be around, centered around the transition the following year. So a lot of what we'll do is going to be centered on that. Any big questions?
Yes, Dr. Kirsten.
What-
Happy.
What do you see as some of the curriculum shifts that maybe come up with the Gibbs opening?
It's a really good question. There have been I would say the biggest thing I would say is a little more integration among the different topics. I think there could be a good marriage between what we're doing in math and science. I think some of this also depends on the schedule that we create, how flexible that is, what we do to support teachers in their ability to collaborate. For me, it's adding some more context to the math while not losing the mathematical lessons. That's going to be pretty important to me. I would say I could see something where we could probably create an infused class of DML technology. We have art classes. We could start to rethink what some of those courses would be and find some connections among all those. To me, that would just enhance kind of the project-based aspect of it. So I would say those 2 big things.
So it's kind of
Curriculum-wise.
as we're rethinking the 6th grade curriculum as opposed to because they're becoming their own separate school.
Yeah. I think we have an opportunity to do something that is, I don't want to just take the 6th grade and move it over. We have the opportunity to rethink some of this stuff. And I know the teachers are up for that. They really, really are. They're going to buy in, I'm pretty certain. I know the math teachers are. They're eager. Another big component, and I'm sure you guys have heard, is the social emotional aspect of it. And I know for a fact that all the teachers are really, really interested in that. The math teachers, I know for a fact.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Just make a comment.
Dr. Bodie?
It's a great presentation, Matt.
Thanks.
This would be a good time to mention this because I think all of what you've said really is reflected in the news we had this week from U.S. News and World Report. They look at the rankings of schools throughout the whole nation. And Arlington High School continues to do better and better in the rankings. And one of the important metrics they look at is how are we supporting our students who need more support in mathematics and certainly writing and reading and analysis. And I think that the kind of programming that the math department and with math's leadership has put into place has really made it a stronger and stronger network of support in the high school, not only in the high school, but in all of the other levels as well. And because whenever what we learned is that Arlington High School is 12th in the state from 19th last year. And some people can question about rankings and all of that, but I do think for this particular ranking, the emphasis on support for your high-needs students and college and career readiness is directly linked to all of this work that you've been doing. And we're very thankful that you're doing it.
Thank you. There's still a lot of work left to do. So I'll be asking for more FTE.
Yeah, good for you for asking.
Good luck.
I ask really well.
Thank you. Any other questions? Lucy, you got any questions for the, okay, it's your chance. Okay, anyone else? Yes.
So I just have a quick comment, which is that I think it's a great idea to do the half-year classes, because one of the great frustrations for high school students is how many amazingly cool classes there are,
Yeah.
and how little
Yeah.
free points they have in the schedule, so having a half-year class gives them
That's
more
the idea.
opportunity to do.
You know, it's adding that general aspect where they can try things out. I mean, that should be a component of your high school experience. So hopefully we can do that over the next couple of years.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Guys, thank you very much for the
Thank
time.
you, it was a great presentation.
Thanks.